You do not have to be the struggler or the projector. You are the consciousness that observes it all. And this is bigger than just the observer and the observed. I'm not just speaking of the observer and the observed concept that many have spoken about and of which you're probably aware. If you haven't heard it before, there's a concept where there's the observer, then there's the observed, the person doing, which is the human, and then the observer self. This is that which contains both the observer and the observed. It is the container that contains it all. It is the mind of God, the imagination of God. This whole universe is inside of a jar, and that jar is the mind of God. Just as you as a human have thoughts and emotions and imaginings and fantasies and dreams and whatever you'd like to call them. And this is what God's mind is doing as well. All of this, everything here, is an imagining in the mind of God. You are but a figment of God's imagination. I am but a figment of God's imagination. Everything, every atom, every molecule, every electron, every tachyon, every string theory thingamajig is a figment in the mind of God. When God stops imagining, the whole universe will disappear into the nothingness from where it came. This is the crazy thing about it. And just as your thoughts and daydreams and fantasies disappear as soon as you stop thinking about them, that's the way this universe works. It is all these comings and goings, coming and going, appearing and disappearing of things, events, objects, forms. All of it comes and goes. But you must ask yourself, what is still here, even after everything has come and gone? Even after forms of human bodies, planets, universes, civilizations, what is still here after it's all come and gone? The answer to that is consciousness, awareness. That's what remains. And that's what you are. That's who you are. You are this consciousness of God that is imagining all of it. You are not separate from God. God is not outside yourself. God is in everything. It permeates every cell of your being. It is looking through every molecule in your body out at itself. This is why the mind simply cannot follow. There's a point on your spiritual path, and the mind is useful up to a certain point. It's good to figure out things. It's good to learn about spiritual truths. It's good to figure things out up to a certain point. But there comes a point where there's no more figuring to be done. There's no more strategizing to be done. There's no more to know with the human mind. It simply cannot follow where you can go. It cannot follow to the point of origin that you are. This, how to put it in words, this awareness, this consciousness, this eternal self that has been here before the beginning of time, will be here after time has ended, is here now, in timelessness, right now. Know yourself as this eternal awareness that needs no form to be aware of itself. And you have found enlightenment. Now, what follows after enlightenment is probably better called deepening. Enlightenment is not a perfected self, not a perfected personality, not a perfected human condition. Enlightenment has nothing to do with that. It has to do with realizing yourself as the consciousness of God, realizing yourself as God, and realizing everyone else as God too. Even the people who you don't think are good people, they are God too. For one thing about the consciousness of God is that it is not important that it be a good experience or a bad experience, bliss, non-bliss. It's irrelevant. Good and bad is completely irrelevant to God's self. The very poorly behaving human, the terrible leader that gets its entire country into dire straits, the bad husband, the bad wife, the bad child, all of them are the consciousness of God exploring its imagination of itself. God asks itself, what if I was a terrible leader? What would that experience be like? What if I was a peasant living on the street, homeless for an entire lifetime? What would that be like? What if I was the Trumpiest of them all, the Donald Trump of them all, the richest of the richest? And probably the richest of the richest, we don't know their names. But what would that be like? This is why all of it can happen. And it's all right in the mind of God. Because God's self knows that this is just imagination. This is just imagining. The human self has not figured that out yet. The human self thinks it's all very real, and suffering is to be avoided at all costs. But eternal self does not balk at any experience. It does not fear having a bad experience or a good experience. It doesn't see a difference. This is the mind twister. This is one thing the mind just does not like to wrap itself around. The human mind does not like this idea at all. The truth is, it is all allowed. It's all here. Because God's self knows that it cannot be harmed by its imagination. Just as you know you cannot be harmed by your imagination. You might wake up from a terrible dream and go, "Phew, glad that wasn't real. Goodness." You might wake up from a good dream and say, "Oh, I wish that was real." Either way, this is how it is for the God self, which is you.